media press interviews regarding Assassin's Creed Shadows. And obviously, you guys are already aware of everything that's happening with Assassin's Creed Shadows. I've had shills in my comment section, by the way. Every time I upload an Assassin's Creed Shadows video, I have shills like crazy in my comments who are like, why are you mad at this? This is coming from the guy who said you just don't like black people. And I'm like, yeah, it is, because we're dealing with two different situations that unfortunately people are too retarded to understand, right? When you have a person known as Yasuke who has less than a paragraph of historical context to go by, and Ubisoft, a massive company who is trying to portray Japan in an authentic fashion, at least that's what they say anyway, decide to use Yasuke as a main character instead of using the multiple samurais that were around during Oda Nobunaga's time, it makes me wonder, what were the intentions behind that and why did they do that? I think it's fair to ask that question, right? But you're going to have people come out and be like, whoa, it doesn't matter what you say. Anyway, so Ubisoft is having press interviews, and they are trying to do damage control, right? They're trying to do damage control, and now they're trying to tell the player that, hey, guys, don't worry. You can avoid Yasuke for any reason in Assassin's Creed Shadows. But the thing that they don't tell you immediately, not until the end of the interview anyway, when they finally got it out of them, is that it's not optional, right? They might try to portray it as optional. They might try to portray Yasuke as optional, but he's not optional. Can you play as Naoe for the majority of the game or a decent size of the game? Of course you can. But there are going to be times at some point where you're going to be forced to play as Yasuke. You have to play as Yasuke in order to complete the game. And I'm not just talking from an achievement standpoint. I'm talking from just completing the game itself. You're going to have to play as Yasuke. So the whole narrative that people are trying to go right now on Twitter, you got the shills going crazy right now. I'm telling you, the shills are going crazy. And they're like, well, Yasuke's optional, just like the gay romance was optional in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So why are you mad at one thing and you're not mad at the other? It's like, what are you talking about? Yasuke is not optional like the gay romance is optional in Kingdom. That's not even the fucking same. I've legitimately had people say that. I wish I screenshotted it. If I could find the comments, I'll show you. But I got to dig through my thousands of comments. But they legitimately say that. They are trying to compare the two. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. It's not optional. You literally have to play as Yasuke. You have to in order to complete the story. It's not optional at all. Anyway, so again, it's people being disingenuous. It's people shit posting. It's people being retarded. And most likely people that don't actually play the games. Most likely. Some of them might, and they just want to defend the game no matter what. Doesn't matter how stupid they sound. But for the most part, they don't usually play the game. Anyway, so let's read the interview and see what actually was said. So Ubisoft appears to be making a last-ditch effort to salvage Assassin's Creed Shadows, now telling players that they can skip playing as Yasuke, the game's controversial black samurai protagonist, for any reason. This phrasing, used by creative director Jonathan Dumont in a recent interview with Screen Rant, and of course it's Screen Rant, has many interpreting as Ubisoft quietly acknowledging the widespread dissatisfaction with Yasuke's inclusion and trying to placate to frustrated fans. Of course it is. Of course it is, right? Why would you think otherwise? This is obviously Ubisoft trying to do some form of damage control to try to quell the backlash that's happening. And they figure, hell, if we just tell them it's optional, it'll be fine. If we tell them it's optional, all will be well in the world. But that's not how it goes. Everybody can see right through it. And you even admit it later on. Hold on, it gets better. In the interview, Dumont assured players they could focus on playing as either protagonist in the game while ignoring the other without missing out on core gameplay. I don't think you're missing out on things too much, Dumont said regarding skipping one of the game's primary protagonists. I think it's more on your preference to say, okay, I'll see how the game will adapt a little bit to the character if you choose one over the other. But it was his next line that raised eyebrows. If you prefer one character for any reason, you can play quite a bit of the game using one of them. Here's the key point. You can play quite a bit of the game. That's not the whole game. Quite a bit of the game. So you could play a decent amount of the game as one character, but at some point you are going to have to switch. So what is that? That's not optional. That is actually forced upon you. You cannot choose to not partake with one character or the other. So even if you wanted to avoid Yasuke, you are going to have to play him at some point, and you cannot avoid him. So all the shills out there saying, oh, look, it's optional. Shut the fuck up. You're being extremely disingenuous. We can see right through you from a mile away. Then it says, this seemingly innocuous phrase has drawn significant attention, giving the ongoing backlash surrounding Yasuke's inclusion. Many see it as Ubisoft's veiled attempt to address the controversy without directly confronting it. For critics, it reads as Ubisoft offering players an easy way to avoid playing as the character whose presence has sparked months of debate. Now, Naue apparently offers a classic Assassin's Creed experience focused on stealth, reminiscent of early franchise entries and the recent Assassin's Creed Mirage. Yasuke, on the other hand, will be absolutely beating the shit out of every unarmed Asian civilian in all of feudal Japan. It totally said that, by the way. I didn't make that up. The article totally said that. I was just translating the article. Don't worry about it. Yasuke, on the other hand, embodies the more aggressive, action-heavy combat style seen in Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. Yeah, of course, because Yasuke was beating the shit. And you know, I'm not even going to, whatever. Dumont clarified that while both characters have their own quest lines, the bulk of the game can be played with either protagonist. So again, guys, they have admitted it twice now that this is not, okay, this is not going to be a game where you can play as one character or the other. You are going to have to play as both. So please, nobody fall for the bullshit of, oh, it's optional. It's not forced on you. We're totally going to allow you to make your own decisions. But like, it's not the case. It's not even close to being the case. This announcement comes amid a tidal wave of backlash Ubisoft has faced over Shadows, much of it centered on the inclusion of Yasuke as a main protagonist. Fans have long clamored for an Assassin's Creed set in feudal Japan, but many expected a traditional Japanese samurai or ninja lead. 100%. 100%. I actually, hold on. Let me look at something really quick. Let me look at something really quick. Because if I'm not mistaken, was he, let me see. I believe so. I'm looking up a certain samurai. Okay, no, he wasn't. He wasn't. Okay, so in Vagabond, right? There is a samurai that is in that manga, right? Is based on a real life samurai. That his name was Miyamoto Musashi. I don't know how to say his full name, but Miyamoto. Anyway, I thought Miyamoto was around during Oda Nobunaga's time, but he wasn't. He actually was born 2 years after Nobunaga died. So never mind on that. But if you wanted to go with some sort of historical fiction, you could have easily used Miyamoto. I think people would have loved to see that. But the point is, they decided to avoid all the actual historical samurais. They decided to avoid all the actual historical samurais or even the Ronins or the ninjas, anybody. Anybody. They avoided all of the potential options that they had. And they said, you know what? We're just going to go with Yasuke. We're going to go with Yasuke. The guy who has less than a paragraph of fucking historical accuracy. We're going to go with Yasuke because that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Why couldn't you just pick a Japanese samurai? That's what everybody would have thought. Or a Japanese ninja. That's what everybody would have thought. Because if you were to talk to people, and I guarantee you this was true, if you were to talk to people and you would have said, hey, what does an Assassin's Creed Shadows, what does an Assassin's Creed game based in feudal Japan look like to you? Do you think anybody would have said Yasuke? I got to be real with you. I don't know of any black person that would have said Yasuke. I don't know of any anime fans that would have said that at all. I think they would have said exactly what everybody else would have said, which would have been a Japanese male samurai or a Japanese male ninja. Nobody would have said Yasuke. Black, brown, white, doesn't matter. Nobody would have said a black samurai. That wouldn't have even been in anybody's mind. You know what I'm saying? And that's even acknowledging how awesome Afro Samurai is. That's even acknowledging that. But it doesn't matter. Nobody would have said that. So they chose to do that. And that's why I consider this to be DEI. Because to make a decision like this in a video game that everybody was waiting for, everybody was excited for, and you chose Yasuke, I can only see it as you choosing Yasuke for one reason and one reason only. It can't be history because he doesn't have a history. All of it's made up for the most part. It can't be that. It can't be for like, I don't know, his status. He didn't have status. The only reason why you chose Yasuke, there is other samurais in history that are way more important with actual real historical context. They were alive during Nobunaga's time. There's only one reason you chose Yasuke, in my opinion. And that is because it's Ubisoft, man. Ubisoft does DEI all the time. And they thought this would be great inclusion. They thought this would get everybody's panties wet. Because they started developing this game in 2020, and every white liberal girl was having their fist in the air, making a TikTok with a fucking black marker on their face, hashtag BLM, and putting their fist in the air and crying. So they thought everybody was going to get fucking moist when they saw Yasuke. They were like, yes, this is what we want. It's like, no, this is not what we want. We didn't want it in 2020, and we damn fucking sure don't want it now. And you're releasing it during the year that Trump is president again? Oh, you're fucked. You're fucked. So again, guys, I want to make it very clear. Shadows can very well do well, right? And I've always said that Shadows is not going to flop. I think Assassin's Creed is going to sell. I think Shadows will sell. But the beautiful thing about all that is that it doesn't matter if it sells or not. Because quite frankly, Ubisoft is fucked. One way or another, Ubisoft is fucked. It doesn't matter. That company is screwed. That company is going to have to sell. I mean, look at this. I haven't even done a video on this yet. I'll show you here. I'll give you a little preview. Look at this article here. Ubisoft sparks fears of financial collapse and alleged investor deception as Assassin's Creed developer works hard to spin financial ruin as a positive. Bro, these guys are desperate. And keep in mind, Ubisoft, right? Ubisoft as a company, they have always been lying to their investors. You guys know we've covered all of the investors' calls, and every time we see the investors' calls, what do we see? We see the Guillemot brothers lying through their fucking teeth to the investors. We see Yves Guillemot lying all the time to their investors. I'm like an outsider looking in, and I'm reading these questions. I'm like, bro, the obvious answer is this. And then the Guillemot brothers are like, well, actually, it's looking pretty positive for us. What do you mean? You mean how you told investors that Star Wars Outlaws had strong pre-order numbers and community sentiment around that game was positive? Remember that? You remember that? Remember when they said that? And what happened with Star Wars Outlaws? Same thing with Skull and Bones. They're like, yeah, people are excited for Skull and Bones. The community sentiment is strong. The pre-order numbers are strong. They're excited. What happened to that? Fucking died too. I think they said the same thing about Prince of Persia. And that game performed the best out of all these games that I'm mentioning. So they flat out lie all the time. They fudge the numbers. They make up shit. And the shills eat it up. The shills are like, well, Ubisoft told us that the pre-orders are strong, so that means you're a liar and you're a grifter because you're saying that they're not. I'm like, first off, I'm not saying that they are or aren't. And second off, what I'm telling you is that this is like the 5th time that Ubisoft has lied publicly about pre-orders being strong and community sentiment being strong on a video game. And then we come to find out that neither of those are true and the game dies. Same thing with X-Defiant. Oh, let's bring up the live service shit too. Let's bring up the live service stuff. X-Defiant, same thing. A month before the announced shutdown of X-Defiant, the director on the video game said that there were no plans to shut the game down. The game was doing fine. The game was performing well. And then a month later, Ubisoft is like, yeah, we're shutting it down. Now, granted, maybe the director didn't know that. But do you really want me to fucking believe that? You really want me to believe the director did not know that his own game was getting ready to be shut down? Come on, man. I don't believe that shit in the slightest. So again, guys, all of this is just, I'm going to make a video on this tomorrow. I haven't read this article yet, so I'm curious. But all of this is to make Ubisoft look as best as possible in the public light, because that way they could demand the highest dollar when they get, bought out by whoever's going to buy them out, whether it's Tencent or somebody else. It's so they can maximize their dollar and their return. But to be honest with you, this game is cooked, man. This game is cooked, at least in public perception. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. I genuinely believe they can come out tomorrow and say, yeah, we're going to replace Yasuke with a Japanese male samurai. If they do that, I guarantee you people still don't buy it. I guarantee you people still hate on it. Because people are going to be like, well, you wrote this out all the way, and now you're just virtue signaling. Now you're choosing to backtrack because you're desperate for money. So I'm not going to support you anyway. People are still not going to buy it. So it doesn't matter what they do. So switching from Yasuke to someone else, you might as well just stick to Yasuke. Just go for the gold. Go for the gold, So that's it for Assassin's Creed Shadows, man. It's one of these situations where, again, they're trying to tell every lie they possibly can to try to save it, but there's no saving it. There's no saving it. Once you're at this level of cooked, it's very hard to save the game. Look at Avowed. Avowed, fucking, the art director went quiet for 2 months. And even after 2 months, it doesn't matter. Like, people had it in their mind about Avowed, and now look at it. It's tanking on Steam. Everybody's like, you know what? I'll just get it on Game Pass. It's free. I don't have to support them. I paid for Game Pass already. Fuck it. Let me just get it on Game Pass. It's only got 13,000 concurrent players at its max over the weekend. And like I said, sure, it's going to go higher after early access, but not much higher. The game's cooked. The game had an insane budget. It is cooked. Doesn't matter. So, all right, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's catch up on super chats. But in terms of people asking about Griffcast with Assassin's Creed Shadows, I wasn't going to buy Shadows. I told you guys this. I was not going to buy Shadows, but Shadows ended up getting gifted to me by Heavenly Jester. So I will stream it and show everybody what it's really about. But Shadows was going to be the one game that I was not going to buy.